After a delicious breakfast, we headed next door to this convenience store, and I wanted to really try out these coffee pouches that are very popular in South Korea. And initially, I couldn't tell the difference between these two, but it ended up being the flavor. I got hazelnut, and you get that pouch and you pour it into one of these ice cups right here, which I just think it's genius. I wish we had that in the USA. Just as we were ready to head out the door, the individual that was working behind the counter of the convenience store said that we could actually use the counter. This is the spot, I guess, where you come to pour the pouches into the ice cups. And he was incredibly friendly and very helpful. And he made sure to take all of our trash and threw it away for us. And we just really appreciated the level of service and friendliness. On our second day in South Korea, we decided to do a tour. We are going to be visiting Garden of Morning Calm, Nami Island, and the Gangchon rail bike. And I actually really enjoyed this tour because I enjoyed riding in the buses and I enjoyed stepping outside of Seoul and seeing the countryside. Our first stop in our tour was the Garden of Morning Calm. And initially, this garden was a private garden, and then it was open to the rest of the country in 1996. The founder of this garden was a professor who was an exchange professor in the United States in 1993. And when he came back, he felt like Korea also needed a garden like other countries that people visit. And so he opened up the Garden of Morning Calm. And the name Garden of Morning Calm was inspired by an Indian poet who called Korea the land of morning calm. And he was inspired to call his garden the Garden of Morning Calm. And I will say that it is a very, very calm, peaceful, and very inviting garden. We were just pleasantly surprised at just how beautiful, how green it was. And I think that that is what has surprised me the most about South Korea, is that it is incredibly green, that there's a lot of green spaces. And I felt like in this record heat that South Korea was having, because apparently when we visited in August of 2024, South Korea was having record heat. And the entire time that we were there, I think the last time that it rained, I think it was on the last day. So we were there for about 10 days. So we went for maybe 8-9 straight days without rain. And while that definitely is not necessarily a bad thing, it did make it incredibly hot and humid. It was temperatures that would reach the mid 90s, high 90s, but the humidity, was in the 80s. I think at one point I had seen that the humidity was 89%. So here it is 89% humidity with, 96% temperature. And it was incredibly hot. It was as if you were breathing through a straw. But oh my gosh, the perspiration. You would step outside of your lodging, and fortunately we had AC, but you would step outside of the lodging and you were just drenched in sweat. And I will be honest with you, I am not someone who perspires or sweats easily. Like, it takes a lot for my body to sweat. I grew up in Miami, Florida, and I've always felt like I've had a high threshold for heat, but this was not the case. I was sweating like a sinner at church in South Korea. And, I think this is the hottest I've ever been. Like, I think South Korea was even hotter than Miami, Florida. So I don't know if I'm exaggerating. I don't know if I've forgotten the heat because I have lived in Oregon for 20 years. And so my body is just not acclimated to the heat. I don't know. People from Florida, have you visited South Korea? Do you feel like South Korea is hotter? Because I did feel like South Korea is hotter. Anyway, like I said, it was incredibly hot. And I'm glad that we did this activity first because we actually got to enjoy the garden. I love the garden. It was amazing. It was worth it. I purchased the tickets through Agoda. I believe that it's Agoda, Klook, and Viator. I believe those are the 3 different agencies. I'm sure there's more, but those are like 3 known names. And I don't know what the difference is between them, but this tour is worth it. You get to choose how many activities you want, and we wanted 3, and I felt like 3 was the perfect amount to just spend enough time in each of the spaces. And we had enough time at the Garden of Morning Calm. It wasn't overly crowded. There were people around, but it wasn't overly crowded, and so we got to see the entire garden and enjoy it and take it all in. The tour does not come with lunch. You have to pay for it. However, they do recommend certain restaurants if you're up for it. And so this was one of the restaurants that our tour guide, his name is Ricky, is actually really cool. So if you guys go through Agoda, if you get Ricky, he is awesome. So this was delicious. We ate it all. It was amazing. And I think that was another cool thing about South Korea, that eating out is way more affordable than it is here in the United States. That's for sure. So, and it was delicious. So we really enjoyed our lunch. So this is where we embark, where we take the ferry to Nami Island. And I think I had seen or read somewhere, I don't know if it was a YouTube video, that you're supposed to show your passport, and that is not the case. So, I mean, if you travel with your passport as a form of ID, that's fine. But no, you do not need your passport to get to Nami Island. So you board this ferry right here, and you just cross this river right there to get to the island. There were actually a lot of South Koreans in this activity. I don't know if they drove there. I don't know if, they live nearby or if they took a tour. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But I did hear a lot of Korean being spoken, and there were a lot of just native South Koreans on the trip. So that was really fun. Apparently, a lot of South Koreans go to Nami Island to cool off during the summer. And so I'm glad that we got to do an activity that, that locals do as well. At this point, it was incredibly hot, hence all the umbrellas and the fans and the hats. And, I was just so happy just to be in South Korea. I had been wanting to visit South Korea since probably 2017, 2018, sometime around that time. And we actually were intending to visit in 2020. However, we all know that year, 2020. And yes, fortunately, that year is behind us. I am hoping that we don't ever experience anything like that for a long, long time, because finally the trip came to fruition in 2024. Oh, I was fascinated by this ostrich. I don't know why I didn't take a face picture of the ostrich. I was fascinated by its toes. They just looked very historic, like dinosaur toes. Let me go back to that one. Hold on. Okay, here is the toe. Look at those toes. I was mesmerized by them. There's that famous statue of the Winter Sonata. Apparently those are the protagonists for a K-drama that was filmed in Nami Island. I've not seen it. I do like K-dramas, but that's not one that I've seen. Might put it on my queue. And here's my husband ringing in. Oh, there's the Winter Sonata picture. And there's this white, beautiful peacock that I was mesmerized by. Have you all seen a baby peacock? I've never seen a baby peacock. Do you guys know if baby peacocks also put their feathers out like the adult peacocks? So here's that beautiful row of trees. And here's another. I think these are ginkgo trees. Very beautiful. Really cool. And I'm not gonna lie, at this point I was incredibly hot and my feet were hurting. However, I was going to soak it all in, because I told myself you only get to travel sometimes to places once, and so enjoy it. So here's the rail park, and this was the highlight of the trip. This was actually so much fun. And I am so glad that we did this at the end, because again, it was very hot, but once we got on the rail, you actually got a nice cool breeze. Here are all the different countries, as you can see. It seems like Taipei and Hong Kong and China are at the top. Yeah. Here's a mug, a little cup that we got as a souvenir. And here we are. Here is the rail. And this was so much fun. We were cooling off and we just did not know. We had no idea how much fun it was going to be. And I would say that this was the highlight of the entire trip. So if you do get a chance to do this, I would recommend for you to include this. And I would recommend for you in general just to consider this tour because it was totally worth it. This was the second tunnel, and doesn't this tunnel remind you of Coraline when Coraline is crawling into that space that by the little door, and then she's going to the other world where she's going to meet the other mother? We're big Coraline fans here, and that's what this reminded us of. Isn't the Korean countryside beautiful? Again, this is what was just the most shocking to me, because in my mind I was just thinking big city and I wasn't thinking green mountains. I mean, I know that that is the case obviously, but I guess I just had ingrained just the city of Seoul, that I kind of lacked perspective on the fact that there are just these beautiful green mountains. Now, like I mentioned before, there are a couple of tunnels here, and this tunnel right here, I don't know if this was the last tunnel or second to last tunnel, but there was a lot of flashing. So if you are sensitive to that, just be aware, because we're kind of taken aback of how much flash there was in this. And this is the part where I went, wow. And I think it was just a day where I don't think my family and I had ever been this hot. For sure, my children had never been this hot. But also, we were just really tired and jet lagged. So this was just incredibly peaceful. And then this last tunnel right here there was a song that kept playing and playing over and over and over again. And I guess there's also flashing here. And it just kind of took, this one was the longest one, if I may say. But it was still fun nonetheless. When we get to the tail end, we actually have to wait for a little train to pick us up, but there were two giant industrial-sized fans here that made it incredibly cool. And being next to the water, I mean, what a view. I mean, just look at this view. Like, I will forever remember this activity because it just was so special. And here we are going back on the train. We are headed back to the buses so that we can drive back to South Korea. And at one point there is a restroom stop after this, and I will just let you know that that bathroom was not good. When we were in South Korea, we had a significant amount of these public safety alerts. I don't know what this one was about, but we sure did get a lot of them while we were there.